Good afternoon and welcome, everybody. Good morning, should I say. Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are around the world at the moment. A very warm welcome to this first session of our communications webinar series titled Inside the UNCCD. Just checking if I'm live online. I'm not seeing myself on the big screen.
Yeah, then Noel, we can see you.
Great. Thanks very much. My name is Noel Utley, and I'm going to be moderating the session. Before we begin, I have a few quick housekeeping points to share with you. Firstly, this webinar is being recorded, so we'll have it available for others to watch later and to listen to. Secondly, importantly, translation is available into Spanish, French, and English. Please choose the channel of your preference by going to the little world icon at the bottom of your screen and clicking there. You're warmly encouraged to use the chat box to introduce yourself, to share reflections, and to exchange information and connections with other participants. We are going to dedicate some time for interaction and a question and answer session with the panelists after they've given their presentations. Therefore, please take note of your questions and we will open the floor. But you will also have the option to use the Q&A function to post your questions. So please make use of that. When you're posting a question, please make it clear which panelist you're addressing the question to. And lastly, we kindly ask you to be concise with your questions so that as many voices as possible can be heard. This series is taking place in the framework of the project Strengthening Civil Society Role in Achieving Land Degradation Neutrality, which is funded by the Global Environmental Facility and implemented by Drynet, IUCN, and both ends. This 5-part webinar series is designed for civil society organizations to strengthen their communications and advocacy skills, to effectively engage with policymakers, and to contribute to land restoration decision-making and policy. Remember, please, that participants who fully attend at least 3 of the 4 webinars, actually I should say 4 of the 5 webinars, will receive a certificate of participation. And over the next 60 minutes, we will explore the engagement with key stakeholders within the UN Convention to Combat Desertification, drawing on experiences and insights from our distinguished panelists. The objectives of today's webinar are firstly to understand who is who in the UNCCD environment, including civil society organizations. We're going to identify key UNCCD stakeholders that influence decision-making and the differences between their interests and the needs for communications. Lastly, we want to gain knowledge on how civil society organizations can approach and communicate with key UNCCD stakeholders that influence decision-making. I now invite you to participate in our poll. You will find a QR code on the screen, which you can scan or click on. You can also click on the link in the chat. And Natalie is just pulling that up. There you can see the QR code. Please use that or use the link in the chat. So we have some questions for you. First question is, have you ever directly engaged with a stakeholder in the UNCCD for communications or advocacy goals? And you can click there. We've got 2 responses so far. So please go ahead and submit your responses there. The second question will be, in case of yes, were you able to achieve your communication or advocacy goal? And then lastly, we want to ask you to consider what would be the main challenge or reason for not achieving your communication and advocacy goal? And while you're completing that survey, I'd like to briefly introduce our first panelists for the day.
Noel, can I
Marcos
also
Montoiro. Yes, please.
Sorry, can I just suggest that if you're struggling with the Mentimeter, then please just put your answers in the chat and we'll see if we can add them.
Thanks, Natalie. So everyone, if you're struggling with the Mentimeter, then just use the chat function in the box on the screen. Okay, so to go back to our introduction of our first speaker, Marcos Montoiro is the External Relations Officer at the UNCCD. He has been working at the Secretariat for 25 years in different areas, ranging from civil society engagement to public information, knowledge management, and implementation of the convention in Latin America and the Caribbean. Marcos is a lawyer originally from Spain, and he also holds a master's degree in social and cultural anthropology. Marcos, you have the floor for 10 minutes or less.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Noel, and thank you so much, everyone, for being here with us in this series of webinars. Today we are going to see a bit of the ecosystem of all the different actors that are engaged in the UNCCD. So first, this convention is the main multilateral environmental agreement that was put into place for giving the vision and the voice for the land. So we have other environmental agreements that they are looking at different environmental problems and challenges, but ours is specifically on the land. So colleagues of Drynet, IUCN, Jeff, they have been supporting and having implemented this project, trying to raise additional awareness on the situation, on the problems of land degradation, and also to see what are the solutions that have been put into place for that. To start, we will see how these different stakeholders and who is who in the UNCCD and what is the category that we have. So we have different areas and ranges of those that they are involved in this convention. We will see who within the UNCCD and the bodies that are supporting in the implementation. Of course, we have also the parties, the governments of this convention, because this is an intergovernmental process where the different governments, they are the ones implementing at the national level the activities, but they are not the only ones. We also have observers, and there are different categories within the observers that we will see together, and additionally and finally other stakeholders that are very relevant on what we are doing. So to start, we will see what are the core, what we call core entities. We have the secretariat that was established by the convention itself, and our main role is to support the work of the parties, prepare the sessions of the conference of the parties and others, and preparing all the documents and drafts. So we act really as a secretaries to the governments, indicating what can be done and making sure that they have their agenda settled, what they need to do, etc. In our case, the Secretariat, we are also supporting and providing answers to anybody that is requesting information. Myself, I'm working in the Secretariat in what we call the unit in charge of communication, external relations, and partnership. So we try to deal with the media, with the civil society, and others. But the Secretariat is not the only mechanism that has been included and decided by the convention. We also have the global mechanism, and their structure has changed, and also the goals have changed since they were originated. At the beginning, and you may know or not know, but this convention was not considered per se an environmental convention. It was more socioeconomic aspects that it was dealing with. That's why the convention didn't have access to the GEF, the Global Environmental Facility. Yeah, the same ones that they are supporting this program that you are part of. Because they said that the activities carried out to protect the land, they didn't have global benefits. Therefore, the governments, they could not access to those financial support. So they created a global mechanism that was first hosted by IFAD, the International Fund for Agricultural Development. And they were a kind of brokers. They were looking where were the funds, what were the needs, and they tried to match them. This changed and evolved, and now the global mechanism is also hosted in Germany. It's together with the Secretariat, and they are more of an implementing institution that they are helping governments and others to implement this convention. So you saw how this has evolved. It's very important. There are flagship projects that they are supporting, like the Great Green Wall for the Sahara and the Sahel, something similar for Southern Africa. There are other initiatives that we are undertaking, like the Riyadh drought resilience work that is being organized, and others. So the global mechanism is taking care of that, including for the Business for Land initiative to try to encourage companies at all levels, small companies and as well as big ones, in changing the model and supporting the work of the implementation of the convention. There is another initiative, is the G20 Global Land Restoration Initiative, which is also based in Bonn, here with us, and they are also supporting that, but looking at a specific restoration. So you may also see they have been sending some requests for small grants for civil society, or work with young ecopreneurs and other activities that could be very relevant for yourselves. The next stakeholders, of course, are the parties, the 197 parties to the convention, so 196 countries plus the European Union. So in this case, we are, the Secretariat, we are supporting them. I always say that I have 197 bosses, which are these ones. We are helping them to implement the convention. They are the responsible because they took an agreement by signing this convention to make sure that they prepare the national reports, they are providing support for the implementation, they are organizing their activities to restore, to rehabilitate the land. At the UNCCD, and I will share the links afterwards, we have all the contact details for the focal points of the convention. There is also representatives of science and technology, which are included within that. So if you go to the UNCCD website and you type a given country, you will have all this information, including their national reports and all the civil society organizations that are accredited in that specific country. So we have in one side the parties, and then we have on the other side what we call the non-party stakeholders. And here there is a huge variety of them. Of course, we are working with the United Nations organizations and systems. Very important for us is the Rio Sisters, Climate Change and Biodiversity, where we are trying to work in a collaborative manner. There are some synergies with them, but they are not the only ones. There is also the Food and Agriculture Organization. If we talk about the land, it's necessary to talk about the food, which is produced mostly on the land. And if the land gets degraded, we are also facing some issues on that. UNDP, the United Nations Development Program, the Environment Program, JEF, and others. Intergovernmental organizations, here is the same. Sometimes they are big institutions that they work at the regional level or on a thematic topic, and these are very key to tackle the implementation of the convention in a given territory, but also through works and activities on specific issues. Additionally, of course, we have our beloved civil society organizations accredited as of now, provisionally accredited. We have around 1,500. We hope that also the work that Drynet, IUCN, and JEF are doing will help us in getting additional institutions that they can be part of this process. They will be able to participate on the COP. The Secretariat provides some financial support. In this case, very limited. Resources are getting scarce, but there are opportunities for civil society to get involved in the work that we are doing at all levels, not only to participate in meetings, but also on the activities that can be carried out at the national level. Then we have different categories of people that are in situation of vulnerability. So we talk about the youth, the young and future generations. There is a specific caucus for the young people. If any of you are under 35, I will provide you also the contact details. You can reach out to them and you can be part of them. There is a youth engagement strategy that gives the elements for the meaningful engagement of the youth. We have women organizations. Now the Secretariat was requested to support the establishment of two separate caucuses, one for indigenous peoples and another one for local communities. We are working to try to bring these additional stakeholders on board. Private sector, I was mentioning this initiative of Business for Land. What we want, of course, is the private sector that they change their business model to make sure that they are not degrading the land. They are making the efforts to restore the land and support it. So we want this convention to be also comprehensive and bring together all the different actors. Research and academia. We see that later we will have colleagues from the University of Bern working with WOCAT, and they can give also other examples on how they are working. And of course, myself working in the unit in charge of communication, external relations, and partnership. We have a lot of collaboration with the journalists and the media. In this case, of course, we are providing material in terms of raising awareness and outreach on the importance of land degradation or the certification, the challenges of the certification land degradation in drought, because that helps us in raising the alarm when things are going not in the correct way, but also we can portray and show things that they are working. flagship projects that they are showing solutions. And I'm sure you have some of them. So we can make sure that we link, for instance, your activities, what you are doing on the ground, with the journalists to show that there are success stories, that there are activities that they are working in this specific task to combat desertification, land degradation, and drought. I will finish here. The last part, of course, when we are talking about the stakeholders, we see in which way they are working and what is providing the governance to the whole work of this convention. You know, the conference of the parties. I'm sure later on in one of the webinars you will see this more specifically. But here you can see the COP takes place every 2 years. Next one is going to be in August in the beautiful city of Ulaanbaatar in Mongolia. And there we have all the different actors coming there to look at the decisions that will govern the work of this convention for the next 2 years, but also looking back on what was decided at the COP in Riyadh 2 years ago and how we have been implementing. There will be negotiations, but also action agenda where civil society and others are involved. And there are two subsidiary bodies. One is the Committee on Science and Technology, where we have the science policy interface that also is helping and bringing these elements in the conversation. And on the other side, we have the Committee for the Review with Implementation of the Convention. The CRIC is meeting every year. The CST is meeting at the same time as the COP in every 2 years. So in the case of the CRIC, and particularly now, they are defining what the parties will need to include in their national reports. And once those reports are presented next year, they will be assessed to see what are the trends and in which way this convention is being implemented. I will stop here, colleagues, and I am ready to answer any questions through the chat or Q&A, and also at the end if you need it. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thanks very much, Marcos. As ever, you've given a fantastic overview of the convention, its different subsidiary bodies, and I know that you're always available to answer questions from civil society. So thank you. We really appreciate your presence and your ongoing contributions. Fantastic. We're now going to look at a more practical view of the convention, closer to the ground. I'm now going to give the floor to our second panelist, who's Dr. Ingrid Teich. She's a senior research scientist at the Center for Development and Environment of the University of Bern in Switzerland, where she leads the work on SDG Target 15.3 within the WOCAT Secretariat. She leads the decision support working group of GOLDN and has supported more than 30 countries in designing monitoring systems, setting national LDN targets, and aligning national reporting with global frameworks. She's currently a member of the Intergovernmental Working Group established by the UNCCD for the future strategic framework of the Convention. She will share from her personal experience some examples of how to effectively engage with key UNCCD stakeholders. Ingrid, you have the floor for 10 minutes.
Thank you, Noel, and thank you, everyone. I'm very happy to be sharing a little bit of my experience. When I was asked, I'm usually asked to present more from a technical perspective, but in this case, I have this task to share some experiences in engaging stakeholders of the UNCCD, which is a bit different from what I usually do. So can you please go to the next slide? A little bit of the context, and I started thinking in which situations I have engaged with the UNCCD stakeholders and which types of stakeholders. And here is a boring list, but in general, I started working on LDN as a Jeff project designer, and I had to engage, for example, with national focal points and try to involve them into the design of these SLM and LDN projects. I've also traveled to the field with some national focal points to verify land degradation and land condition. I've also engaged them in the reporting process. You probably know that now we are ongoing the 2026 reporting process to UNCCD. I am actually currently in China, where we are having the regional workshop for Asian countries. And so a lot of my work has been in working on estimating indicators and a lot of science and policy interface work. But I've also engaged a lot with members from the Secretariat, particularly not from the communications unit that Marcos is working, but from the STI, the Science, Technology and Innovation unit from the Secretariat, and also the global mechanism. So in the next slide, I will share some of the key things that I think that would be useful. So if we can, yes, thank you. About engaging national focal points. So the national UNCCD focal points, of course, are crucial, are very important because they represent the parties at COPs. I think every time we have like an idea, a project, or something we want to do, we have to make sure that the UNCCD focal point is involved, and they are basically the ones who would give a green light in terms of embedding the work that we want to do or that we think that is important within the national UNCCD processes. So very important, every time we engage with someone, is to understand who they are, no? And put ourselves in their shoes. So UNCCD focal points are very different, no? I've engaged with very young and as I said, focal points that would go to the field and talk to the land users and very energetic and active. And also focal points who are there are focal points who are very high, you know, and very political, are not so much present in every action. So we have to understand that, first of all, not all focal points are the same, but they are usually very busy and they have many activities that they need to do, and they are not just UNCCD focal points, no? Being a UNCCD focal point, it's usually like one more thing that they have to do in a very long list of things that they do. So their focus is always delivering their national commitments, aligning with government priorities. So I think it's very important that when we engage with them, we try to show or think how our work can help them or can be a solution to their problem. And it's amazing that there are 125 people connected here, and I'm looking at the chat from all different parts of the world and with amazing work that you are doing. And we all, coming from CSOs, are always very passionate and very convinced that what we do is very important. But that we have to make sure that when we propose something or when we engage with the national focal points, we show them how our activities and our ideas can be useful for them. So that to me is like the key points. So for example, in my case, I work a lot with monitoring and within the reporting, and I want to make sure that the countries and the parties make good reports, know that they use national information, that they do participatory processes for assessing the LDN indicators, that they spend time and resources and they engage different stakeholders within the country, and that they really do a good report. And some UNCCD focal points might see this, you know, like a extra burden, not just so I have to show them how important this is for them, you know, also how this can give visibility to what they're doing, how strategic is having good assessments of land degradation for investing in the right places and also leveraging more funding. So I always try to think from what I want to do, what would work for them And to me, this is like the key, be a problem solver. And always try to adapt to their context. Many times using different types of communication channels, or maybe with some of them with WhatsApp, others. Every time we have a meeting, I hate using, for example, certain platforms, but if they prefer it, I would, of course, adapt. So I think it's important to show, flexibility also. And something very, very important is long-term commitment and involvement. So to create trust and to really build these relationships with the UNCCD focal points, we need to really be there over the different projects, for example, and time. No, so this is basically what makes engagement successful. So the second example, if we change the slide, if we move forward, please, it's how I have engaged with the Secretariat of the UNCCD, and particularly, as I said, the STI, the Science, Technology, and Innovation unit. And it took me some time to understand that they are really mandated by COP decisions. No, Marcos, correct me if I'm wrong, but you are not free to do whatever you want. I mean, coming from being a scientist, I have maybe more freedom in deciding what I want to study, how, but in the Secretariat of the UNCCD, they really have to follow, what the decisions say, and what the parties, as Marcos said, he has 197 bosses, and he has to do what these bosses tell him to do. And that is the language that they use are the COP decisions. So when you engage with the Secretariat, it's very useful also to show them, also in this same concept of showing them that what you want to do or what you're doing is useful and good, etc., to show them in their language how that is accounted for example, in different COP decisions. So if you refer to official processes, to UNCCD priorities, to COP decisions, it might help you engaging with UNCCD Secretariat staff. And also very important is to learn, and I'm learning every day how complex the UNCCD is. So Marcos mentioned the different bodies, but also the different units within the Secretariat. And they are not necessarily connected among them in a daily basis. So sometimes we assume that because we have communicated or worked with a person in the Secretariat, everyone knows about that, but it's not the case. No, I mean, there are really different teams, different units, and we have to know, and reach out to the right unit or person. So very important in terms of engaging with the UNC Secretariat, understand their mandate, their role, think as always how you can bring a solution, and be proactive also. So I think we are over 10 minutes now. I'm trying to keep my schedule. These are my experiences with the UNCCD Secretariat. We've collaborated, for example, in writing and producing documents such as the Good Practice Guidance Addendum or the Land Story publication, and bringing the science also and the experience engaging countries and parties. And it has been wonderful because when the Secretariat is involved, it also gives a lot of visibility and makes it official. And so I advise you also to always link your work to the UNCCD processes. So, yep, thank you very much. I'm also open to questions. And that's all.
Thank you so much, Ingrid. That was very informative and helpful. And thank you to everyone who's contributed your questions in the Q&A. I see most of the questions have been responded to already, which is excellent. We're now going to move into an open and interactive session between our two speakers and the participants. And we have 130 participants online, which is a lot. But nevertheless, if you would like to pose a question to the panelists verbally, you can do so by raising your hand using the little raise hand function at the bottom of the screen. And I will try and scroll through and make sure that I see whether you've requested the floor.
Noel,
And I can allow one person to speak at a time. Yes.
just before we start, can I share the results that have appeared?
That would be great. Thank you, Natalie. Let's do that before we move on to the open session.
Okay, can you see those?
Yes, we can. Would you like to read them out, or shall I?
Okay, so have you ever engaged directly with stakeholder in the UNCCD for communications or advocacy goals? So we had 23 people say yes and 21 say no. So that's quite an even mix. We had less responses to this, and I think it might be a technical glitch because we are still working this one out, but next time round, this will work much better. But if yes, were you able to achieve your communication or advocacy goals? So we've got 3 people saying yes, 2 people saying no. And if you have any responses, please do click on the link. Aniela, perhaps you can share it again or use the QR code and you can add your responses to the slide. So now we have 4 people saying yes, which is fantastic. And then what would you consider the main challenges or reasons for not achieving your communication or advocacy goals? So we've had quite a few responses here in terms of not understanding the political and other constraints of the negotiators. So I think that's where these webinars are really also helpful, I think, in sort of unpacking that. The difficulty in effectively reaching and engaging the target audience. And I think Ingrid spoke to that quite nicely, which is around really sort of meeting people where they're at on the platforms they are able to, and with the context that they're able to work with. Limited resources, which is, especially in the global south, a big one. State-orientated and centered of the atmosphere, which needs more space for CSOs to engage in terms of awareness raising to the state and policy making players. While land degradation is perceived as longer-term concern, at the same time, fragmented short-term projects, limited access to continuous capacity building, and weak connections between policy. I'm guessing that's makers. Often not directly linked to immediate livelihoods and economic incentives, herders tend to prioritize short-term survival strategies such as increasing livestock numbers, while degradation is, I think we probably had a limitation to characters here. But yes, I think often people are just focused on survivalism, so it's difficult to get to these big picture goals. Markets and finance reduce the effectiveness of messaging. As a result, awareness alone does not lead to action. Effective advocacy must align with livelihoods, incentives, and practical system-based. And I think that's where these communication webinars are very helpful, and sort of storytelling techniques, because sometimes it doesn't cost a lot to communicate. There are a lot of platforms out there. Failure to communicate clearly, clearly my agenda, and also sometimes the use of communication style. So it sounds like these are really good things to perhaps explore further in these webinars. Difficult to identify relevant stakeholders in our region and country. The choice of partners and collaborators in cases where interests are not similar, then it is difficult to achieve common messages, the way messages are drafted in activist language. Just coming back to this identifying relevant stakeholders, perhaps that's something that the panelists can speak to about how people find out who to engage with. Not using proper wording to deliver messages, lack of opportunities, resource limitations has come up a few times. And then there's one here that I don't speak Spanish. Okay, so I'm going to hand over the floor to the panelists and the Q&A. And if there's anything there that they would like to also speak to, please do.
Thanks very
May
much. Thanks, Natalie. Yes, please.
Thank you, Noel and Natalie. No, I was looking at some of the questions in the Q&A, and they are all in the similar tone, like when the NFP is not collaborative, what to do? Do we have to back them in order to show that we support their mandate? Sorry for this question. Thank you for the honesty. We always make efforts to be proactive, but we also need the proactivity each other, not so. Well, it's difficult to reply to these questions, but I think that you have, if they are not collaborative, I mean, there's nothing you can do. No, I mean, you cannot get mad or tell them that they need to work with you or that they need to be more proactive. I think you have to try to be more creative and also listen more on what they need. I know that maybe you don't want to do that, but we have to understand that if we want to get our goal, if we want to get there, we will have to make this happen, and we will have to understand where they are standing and really try to be creative in finding a way to that they see why collaborating with you is useful for them. To me, that's the key, and that's where you have to maybe take some time and understand where they are, and maybe listen or more on and show them why that would be, because there are always ways, but you have to not think in your own language or in your own vision. You have to think in their vision and in their language. And then, but I mean, sometimes it doesn't work, and it doesn't work. So maybe find another person who can help you get to the national focal point. And yes, I mean, ideally they would see how valuable our work is, and they would be reaching out and being proactive. But if that's not the case, then we have to make that effort, because they're probably in 1,000 different things, and it's not a priority for them to collaborate with us, with the CSOs that we are representing. So I wanted to mention that.
Wonderful. Thanks very much. I think that was very useful, Ingrid, and something we should all keep in mind. Understand who you're speaking to, empathize with them, otherwise you're not going to get anywhere. We have a question from Ruth Spencer. Ruth, can I give you the floor? Ruth, you have the floor.
Okay. Can't you hear me?
We can.
Yes, we can hear you.
We have to remember implementation is on the ground with the people. So, in response to the question that focal points may be not listening to you, on the ground, we have the evidence that we are working across many conventions in Antigua, Mercury, climate, biodiversity, but we integrate the ESCAZO agreement, that human rights agreement, that gives us the power to request participation, consultation, information. So it's important for focal points, people on the ground, to see the many roles and responsibilities. And in the long run, it's the people's actions that count. And so without the people involvement, there'll be no implementation. So I think it's learning, capacity building for both focal points on the ground, but we are working towards sustainable initiatives. And once the people are involved, things will move smoothly. Thank you.
Thank you, Ruth. And let's keep in mind that what you're referring to there, Ruth, is the great strength of civil society, is that we're working on the ground with the communities. We have insight into what works and why, and what doesn't work and why not. And if we can share those insights with the parties, with the delegates, with the negotiators, in ways that they can understand and empathize with, we can make progress because we have something to offer, and they need that. They need that insight and input. Thanks very much, Ruth. Much appreciated hearing your voice from the Caribbean. Would anybody else like to raise a question to the panelists, or would Marcos or Ingrid like to respond to Ruth's input?
No, I think it's great. Yeah, it's true. Totally agree with Ruth.
Thank you, Ingrid. Would anyone else like to take the floor? You can use the raise hand feature at the bottom, and I can give you the floor. Daniel has requested the floor. Daniel, I just need to find you, and I will give you the floor. And after you comes Frank. Daniel, you have the floor. Daniel, you have the floor. Daniel, if you can't take the floor, I will pass it on to Frank.
I don't know. I'm on the floor.
We hear you now. Daniel, please go ahead.
Thank you. Okay. I just want to observe, say something on what was said by Ingrid about national focal point.
Daniel, we're struggling a bit to hear you. Could you speak more loudly, please?
I was saying that I just want to do a reaction to concerning what was said by Ingrid about our national focal points. Are you getting me?
Yes, we hear you.
Okay, thank you. So I don't know. Our national focal points seem to be supported when we hear what is said by panelists. I mean by Ingrid, and sometimes also maybe Marcus. They are supported, but we CSOs, where is our place? Because we are always complaining that there is no, our national focal points are not open to us, to receive us, to discuss, to help us look in the same direction as our, I don't know, as our objective, our goals, our national goals want us to work together so that we can reach the same result. We can target our goals together. They are also, I don't know, they don't want us. I can also say they see us as maybe enemies. I don't know how to say it. So they are not open. They are not open to us. Because when I remember what happened last time in Riyadh, what happens there with our national focal point. You know, if we are not humble, we cannot go ahead together. So we need that. Um, that is just an a call. I'm just wanted you to help our national focal point to be open to us, so that we can go ahead to get together and then reach our goals together. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. Much appreciated, Daniel. I think it's a point that many of you will recognize, that focal points are not always available. They're sometimes very overworked people, and they do see us as civil society being a bit of a nuisance. But I appreciate the point you're making about the need to be humble, Daniel. Ingrid or Marcos, would you like to respond to Daniel's point, or shall we move on to Frank? Ingrid, I see you've raised your hand. I guess you want to respond. Mm-hmm.
No, I was thinking on how I have. I mean, I don't have the answer to this problem, but from my experience, like one of the ways that you can show focal points how useful your work is for them is, for example, in my experience, the national reporting. It's a really stressful moment for the national focal points, and they are desperately looking for information. So it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity for us to also, for example, if we are working on the ground, as Ruth said, and implementing and doing things, in the national reports, the parties can show progress and implementing actions that they've done. Now, and this would give visibility to the work that you are doing, but it would also, be something good for the focal points. So maybe an entry point from my experience could be that. Maybe you can say, okay, look, I know that you're doing the national report. This is work that has been done in our country, and it would be good that you show this as progress, and here is the information. Then you can use it. So this could maybe be seen as something good that they can use, and then open a little bit the door. It was one of the ideas that, listening to you, came to my mind, that now, for example, we are in that moment. Now it's an opportunity to and for us it's good, because you will have your projects and your actions visible in these official reports, and it's a win-win for everyone. And trying to close that gap and not be seen, like enemies, and trying to find ways to collaborate. Yeah, thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Ingrid. Great point. Frank, can we put you on the floor? Frank, you have the floor. I think you're still on mute, so you can unmute yourself.
Oui, bonsoir tout le monde.
Frank, you're muted.
Bonsoir.
There we are. Très bien. Bonsoir. Bonjour.
Tout le plaisir est pour moi de partager à ce webinaire. Et je disais tantôt, j'ai écrit déjà dans le chat, il arrive que les réalités traditionnelles de chez nous se mettent en conflit avec les dispositions des droits de l'homme, liberté de circulation des personnes et des biens, alors que nos savoirs traditionnels ont permis de conserver des forêts sacrées, des sources d'eau mystiques, et par un, il y a des rituels qui se font pour célébrer et protéger davantage ces forêts. Donc, au cours de ces célébrations, il y a eu parfois l'influence des autres religions qui font en sorte que les responsables politico-administratifs ont commencé par vouloir prendre des dispositions pour limiter ces pratiques qui pourtant participent à la préservation de nos forêts et donc à la préservation de la biodiversité. Dans ces conditions, nous avons commencé un travail. Mais nous, si nous pouvons avoir encore d'autres sons de cloche pour améliorer, ce serait bien. Allô?
Merci, Frank. Thank you, Frank. Any reflections on the question of traditional knowledge and practices being in opposition sometimes with the policies and laws of government?
I think perhaps
Marcus or Ingrid, would you care to respond?
yeah, perhaps Ingrid
Please,
can
Marcus.
answer with the work carried out by WOCAT, where also, I mean, they are contained in their including also the traditional knowledge as a valid way of making sure that this traditional knowledge is kept and also successfully help for the restoration or rehabilitation of land or even the protection. And before that, in the case, this is what something that we are working now with this establishment of the caucuses for local communities and the caucus for indigenous peoples, where this part on the traditional knowledge is a very strong element which needs to be protected, needs to be recognized, and also give some value. So this will be some work that we will be doing in the future. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Marcos. So the convention is moving and the convention is actually serving these needs. So thanks to the Secretariat for being so forward-looking and enabling these. Let's go to another question from the floor. We have a question from Dr. Datta Badahur Rawal, and I'm going to give you the floor.
Yeah, no,
Dr.
Noel, thank
Datta,
you.
you have the floor.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much. I have just one question special for Marcos. As a grassroots CBA in Nepal, we successfully implemented rainwater collection ponds, planting tree under the UNCCD small grant in this year, which was later scaled up by local government. For instance, we improved and constructed 3 rainwater collection ponds in our land and forest restoration area. After that, local government with community forest group replicate and improve and constructed 35 rainwater collection ponds in larger area in the forest and other appropriate area. The national media also covers this news in broadly across the country. So we have also very success case studies about it, which has been produced under the support from the UNCCD small grant support. So how we can communicate with UNCCD communications team and how we can replicate this success story in the other region widely. So how we can connect with the respective people so that this type of the success stories can replicate across the region and globally.
Mhm. No,
Thank you,
thank you so
Dr.
much.
Datta. That's an excellent. Marcos.
No, sorry. No, thank you so much for sharing that. Excellent news. Our colleagues of the G20, because this is a part of the small grants that we have been organizing with them. There is another call that was closed recently where also there will be opportunities for many of you that they may have applied. The idea is try to combine, no, get also the elements of what work. I think my colleagues Dr. Data will be, or they are already in contact with you to gather elements and to prepare some information that can show the great success of your initiative and try to see if we can help you upscale those projects or additional funding could be obtained from others, including private sector. So, and here is where we are linking this Business for Land program, in which we are trying to engage with companies of all levels to support also the work that can be undertaken by organizations. So this will be something interesting, and I'm sure my colleagues of the G20 will reach out and get in touch with you, since you were one of the beneficiaries of these small grants.
Great, thank you. We're running short on time, but I would like to give the floor to Maria Isabel Martinez Pons. So you have the floor, Maria.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Can you hear me, guys?
Yes.
Thank you very much, Marco, Ingrid, and Noel. I'm from Mexico. I'm actually studying, PhD studying about biotechnology and soil restoration. And also I'm from Fundación Cuenca Sana, Agua Limpia. My question is specifically about your experience. I just want to know, here in Mexico, Latin America, exists one program, or because we want to connect with you to apply these kinds of techniques, the soil restoration, specifically in we're working on biodigesters and also seed balls or Nendo Dango to restoration of lands. So this is now I want to know, here in Mexico, where I connect and where are the experience that you have here in Latin America. Thank you.
Thanks so much. I think this is a question for Ingrid, who is from the WOCAD network, which really can address the question you've raised, I think. Ingrid.
Thank you. Well, in Mexico, connected to a focal point nowadays might be a bit difficult because it's changing a lot. Like, this is one of the problems, no? Also, like, sometimes the focal points change a lot. And but it would be very interesting maybe if you connect with the PUEs in the National University of Mexico, because they are now working also in cooperation with FAO and the Global Soil Partnership in a project, and they are also leading and supporting the government in the national reporting process. And so you can write to me, and I can also put you in contact with them. And I think they are now doing both things: implementation on the field, research, and also leading the work for Mexico on the reporting process, and could also act there as a link between implementation, science, and government. And so that could be, and the Global Soil Partnership has done a lot on this, also in all Latin America. Now the GEF 9 is coming, for example, the new cycle of the GEF. And so countries will be deciding what to do and which projects to do, and always having concrete options or technologies, to do things on the field is very important. And I would advise you also to see if, I mean, this would be ideal, but if you get in touch also with these processes, and make sure that maybe this is a solution and something that can be done, and in the context of any of these LDN or SLM projects funded by the GEF, that could also be, a way to be able to do what you mentioned. Yeah.
Thanks very much, Ingrid. We have run out of time, so I'd like to just wrap things up. And before I do, just thank Marcos for his very proactive response on the Q&A. I think all the questions that have been raised have been very, very well answered. Thank you, Marcos. Some key takeaways from today. I think very importantly, understand who the key players are in the system and what constraints they face. Secondly, be proactive, identify opportunities and offer solutions to problems that the negotiators and the parties face. So come to the table with something to offer and not just a demand. We note that NFPs are not always available or accessible to civil society and sometimes see us antagonistically. So therefore, we need to be humble and build those relationships. I think quite an important point from Ingrid was provide your national focal points with inputs from civil society into the national reporting process. Next point was around traditional knowledge. It may be in opposition with laws and practices, but in the UNCCD framework, we now have the caucuses, which can support the integration of Indigenous and traditional knowledge into decision-making. And lastly, share information effectively about initiatives that have had an impact and share the successes, also share the challenges, because there's often a lot of learning to be had from the challenges. And with that, I'd like to remind you that the webinar today has been recorded. The recording and the slides of the webinar will be shared with you by email and will also be on the Drynet website shortly. We invite you to stay engaged and to fill in the feedback form. And please join the next webinar of this series, which will be on May the 7th, and that will focus on lobbying, advocacy, and policy. We'd also like to invite you to join our first webinar of the LDN series that will be presented next Thursday, April 16th, and that will focus on what's at stake with the UNCCD negotiations this year. And with that, I'd like to wish you a very excellent rest of the day. Thank you very much for your participation, and a special thanks not just to our two wonderful presenters, Marcos and Ingrid, thank you so much, but also to our interpretation team who have been working very hard, and our technical backup team. Thank you very much to everybody. It's been a real pleasure to engage with you all today, and look forward to seeing you next time. Goodbye.
Bye.